Hi guys, David Jennings here from melbourneseoservices.com, and I just wanted to share with you a little bit of a case study and an insight into one of the tools that we use here at Melbourne SEO Services. And I'm talking about shoeboxed.com.au. If you haven't seen it, it's a service that basically takes your receipts, they scan it and input it into their system so you've got an online record. I'll actually get Simon Foster, he's the managing director, to tell you a little bit more about it. But the reason I wanted to record this audio is just to give you a little bit of an insight. It's been a fantastic tool that we use, and wherever you've downloaded this audio, you'll probably see there's a little testimonial close to it as well that we recorded for the team over at Shoeboxed. So I thought, why not get them on the line so we can get a clear idea as to what they do, get a bit more insight. So I suppose firstly, Simon, just like to welcome you to the call.
Thank you, David.
Excellent. So, I mean, maybe by way of introduction, Simon, if you want to tell us a little bit about what Shoeboxed is and what they do, and I suppose how you came across it and became part of the business.
Okay, so Shoeboxed helps you organise your paper clutter. We take receipts and business cards, so I always carry some in my top pocket. So there we go, piece of paper like that, and you can either use your smartphone, iPhone, Android, actually any phone that's capable of taking a picture. Or you can post them to us, or you can use a scanner. So multitude of ways to get them to us. We'll then store them in a way that the tax office likes, and we'll extract the relevant information on it so you don't have to deal with it. In terms of how we came about it, I was actually involved in a software distribution business, and we were looking for companies to represent in Australia. And one of the companies we approached was Shoeboxed in the US, and our timing was just very good. They were looking to expand overseas. And this was 2009, and the high of the GFC, if you can call it a high. And Australia was pretty much the only place in the world you'd want to go at that point in time, because every other economy was tanking and we were doing reasonably. And in the end, I looked at what Shoeboxed was doing, and I looked at what the distribution business was doing, and I said, no, I'm going to stick with Shoeboxed, and I moved full-time into Shoeboxed.
Interesting. Well, I mean, you've always got a background. I had a little bit of a look at your bio before we jumped online. I mean, you've always been in that software as a service space, even before it was really known as software as a service. I think it's a fantastic addition or even standalone business for business owners, because you get that ongoing residual sort of benefit. You know, you sign the person up and you just keep on billing them each month. When you sort of decided, right, this is a business that I'm going to buy or get a license to or be involved in, what sort of thinking goes in behind the scenes for you to make that decision?
There's the regular due diligence you do on any sort of business, whether you're going to have them as a supplier or you're looking to purchase a license or purchase a business or start one up. You take a look at the financials, you take a look at things like gross margin. This business, look at growth. The thing that had impressed us most is the type of growth the Americans have been able to achieve, but also how they've been able to manage costs. We had a discussion a little earlier as we were going into this, and you weren't even aware that we do this with Australian stuff. We don't ship our stuff offshore. It's done in Australia. There are some logistical reasons for that. Shipping packages internationally is very expensive, so we would need to scan it here. But also for the data entry piece, which is looking at the documents and validating what the computer has extracted from them, it turned out that Australians looking at Australian documents are considerably more efficient than sending it offshore. And the comparative salaries, you hear about offshore locations and the savings you can make. That's true for a lot of skilled work. So if you're looking to bring in, I know accounting firms that will train CPAs in the Philippines, so they'll make them go through Australian qualifications. Now, the cost differential of having, I'm not sure what they're paying in the Philippines, I think it's $15, $20 an hour versus potentially hundreds of dollars an hour for a local CPA is substantial. For what we do, no doubt Australia is one of the highest cost places to locate unskilled labour, but the cost differences aren't as great as you think. When we did research on it, we're paying around the $22, $23 fully loaded an hour. India's about 12. Philippines is about 8, and this still blows me away every time I say it. It's $7.50 in parts of America. Yeah. So it's actually cheaper to get someone in America than it is to get them in the Philippines.
Yeah. You also mentioned as well something that a lot of businesses don't think about or know about is this idea of unlocking grants as well here in Australia. I don't know if you can comment on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So most of our data entry staff, we bring them in on government grants, so they're long-term unemployed. So give you an example, we have one guy, he left school at 16, he's 22. he hasn't held a job, and that makes it very difficult for him to get work. Now, we've got unskilled job. We take him in on a 6-month grant where the government pays half his salary. From a Centrelink perspective, it's effectively costing the same as the dole, but he's working and he'll be able to keep a job, prove he can keep a job. He's more attractive to an employer. From our perspective, it makes it much easier to employ, much cheaper to do so. It's really win-win from that perspective. He gets a job, we get staff at what's an attractive price for us. He will eventually go off benefits because of that. In fact, he's been with us now for 6 months, so his grant finishes the end of this month. And we get a loyal employee. We know the type of work we do isn't particularly interesting. People will stick with us for a year, for 2 years, but it works terrifically. And those are the type of grants people are not necessarily aware of. You hear about, there are companies advertising on the radio and so forth that they can do placement for disabilities. Same sort of thing for long-term unemployed. And it's worked really, really well for us.
I mean, is that something that you thought about up front? Like when you sort of started to plan out the strategy, you go, right, we're going to open up Shoeboxed here. Did you think a lot of this beforehand, or did you just go, right, I can see the numbers here, it's a growth area, I think we can make it fly in Australia?
No, we didn't consider the grants initially. What happened was our first person who came in on the grant was a gentleman with cerebral palsy, and he found us, went to his service provider, said, I want to work at Shoeboxed, can you go sort this out? And it really went from there, and it's been very rewarding at a personal level as well as a business level. In terms of the business model works at full Australian salaries. Yeah. But it's just, it's a cherry on top. We're always looking for ways to gain efficiency. And this also has a terrific morale effect on the staff to see what we do and the type of support we can give people in that scenario.
Yeah, that giving back. You should try and see if you can, if you haven't already built it into the marketing, because I mean that's something that a lot of people like to be a part of, and know there's some supporting companies that do that type of thing.
Yeah, we're starting to look at that. It's a delicate balance. You don't want to be seen to be doing it for purely PR.
Yeah.
And obviously, we don't necessarily want to mention the individuals involved in too much detail about them, but. No, it's a good thing. And the first gentleman I was mentioning had cerebral palsy, and I think it was great. He just had this attitude. He came in the office, he was happy, he made everyone else happy. He was terrific to come around, and he now works for the tax office. So he's a qualified accountant.
Very cool. I mean, that's probably all part of your growth, and as the business grows, you kind of start to touch more and more people. Are there, other issues when I suppose you first got started? All businesses have those growing pains, and you brought on a business that was at least a little bit proven and had the track record. But I'm wondering what sort of other hurdles and things that you came up against, and maybe how you solved some of those.
The biggest issue is probably personal, in the sense that you have to learn to let go. And as a small business owner, you do everything yourself initially. And as you grow, you've got to learn to trust your staff and to delegate it and find ways of supporting them. It's not terribly different to the corporate world as you grow in seniority within the corporate world. But when you've been doing it a while yourself, particularly if it's your own cash and your heart and your soul built into the business, it's really hard to let go. But you have to. You can't do everything yourself, and invariably you're not the best person to do it as much as you think you might be.
The biggest thing with letting go is oftentimes people worry about making sure that quality of work remains to a high standard. I mean, when it's the business owner, you take a certain level of pride in it, and you want to make sure you deliver at a high output. What sort of things do you guys put in place, or checks and measures, to make sure that output remains high?
So in terms of our data entry, we actually have a pretty sophisticated system that measures accuracy and provides feedback on speed and accuracy back to our operators. What was interesting is that we found in doing some research on that the feedback we were giving on accuracy, which was a red flag, and it was fairly immediate if someone had made a mistake. Essentially, it worked the same way as airport security. We put receipts in front of people that we already knew the correct results for in amongst the piles so we could test. What was happening is, if they saw a lot of red flags and inaccurate, they became less accurate. They became very self-conscious about it and were less accurate and less speedy. When we took it away, they were more accurate.
Interesting.
So the psychology of it was we actually no longer give that feedback to them immediately. It's part of their regular review process every few weeks, because otherwise they just get very nervous and it's counterproductive. So we're still measuring it, we still watch it, and obviously if an operator is not doing very well, we work with them to improve, but it's not immediate feedback. We do give immediate feedback on speed. That is still a factor, and it's a really delicate thing because you have to trust yourself, let alone have management trust you. The biggest issue is confidence. If they're confident and they trust themselves, they'll be fast, they'll be accurate. If they don't, we have to redo stuff.
Yeah. And the way that you give that feedback, it's always a delicate situation on how to bring it up. I know some people talk about this idea of, giving a positive and then giving the negative, then giving a positive, but I always felt like you do that and then it kind of undermines the positive that you give the person, because then they think, oh, they're just saying that because they're about to tell me something that I need to improve. So how do you kind of handle, the feedback?
We do it in a formal way.
Yeah.
So there are regular reviews. There is feedback then on how they're performing, what speed is like, what accuracy is like, and we then are very clear that we work with them to improve. And it's also important. One of the mistakes you can make is you can sort of think, well, we have a poor performer, we know they're going to leave, therefore I don't need to spend time on them. Aside from a legal or moral perspective, that being a bad thing, it also has impact on the other staff. They see how you're treating them, and it'll impact their productivity and their trust in you. So it's very important that you're seen to be fair, and you are fair, and you work with people. And at the end of the day, I want the staff to be successful. It costs us time and money to train them. I'd much prefer to have people be successful and do a good job than have to make the hard decisions and let people go. But you do occasionally have to do that, unfortunately. In terms of the positive, negative, then a positive, that's a Toastmasters thing, which you might have got it from. It works in that environment. It's an important skill to have. I think it works sometimes, but it's not necessarily appropriate for every occasion.
Yeah. With your business as it's sort of starting to grow now that you're kind of a little bit further down the track, having built the Australian arm up quite significantly, is it kind of evolving as you imagined it when you sort of took it over? You're seeing just as huge growth rates here in Australia as people sort of pick it up? I know things like when Xero launch, and it's getting bigger over here in Australia, the online cloud accounting, things like that would definitely push your business forward. Have you found that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're certainly working with Xero and with people like MYOB and others that are entering the market. We support almost a dozen different accounting packages, and absolutely that helps because they're educating the market in cloud and new technology, and they're bringing people in. But I think Xero's latest numbers, they had 30 or 35,000 customers in Australia. Now, if you consider the size of the small business market, depending on who you speak to, it's somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million businesses.
Yeah.
That's just a drop in the ocean. When we speak with the banks, they tell us about 80% of small businesses operate their business off their bank balance. That's it.
Yeah.
It's scary. That's not how you should be managing your business. That's not where you should be spending your time, making your decisions based on a bank balance rather than understanding what you're spending. So there's a huge opportunity to help improve small businesses. We also think about a third of our customers use us purely for the storage component, just to deal with, I need to find a receipt later on to claim a warranty for an audit, for example. We recently had a situation where we were actually contacted by an ATO auditor, and I think the end client was in dispute with their accountant, and they were sort of arguing with each other, and then they realised we were involved, and they put the ATO onto us, which was fine. We were able to deliver what they wanted in about 5 minutes. And the auditor sort of went, oh, wow, this stuff's great. How do we get information out to people about it within the ATO? And we launched a couple of days ago, actually, soft launched, thing we're calling the Audit Protection Program. And so the idea is that if you do get audited, there's a letter you can give the ATO auditor that explains what Shoeboxed is, what we do, has a priority number. They can call us and we'll give them what they want. So you don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Just trying to take the worry away from small business. It's something, we can train you how to do it yourself, but how often do you get audited? It's an unusual thing.
That's a little bit of a business lesson in itself, that idea. You're kind of responding to what the market's asking for, or what will most help. Is there any sort of mechanisms in place that you kind of do to keep your ear to the ground to hear what is most going to benefit your clients? Or
look, there's some really simple things to do. Google alerts on sort of our name and some relevant industry terms and industry vendors. I also have permanent searches on Twitter, which send emails I think it's about every 3 or 4 hours for things, and just keep on top of what the conversation is and what people are talking about. We pay very close attention to our business metrics. Everything is done online, so we can track it very closely, and we watch to see if something changes, why has it changed, where are referrals coming to our website, has there been a change in SEO, are we suddenly seeing a different AdWords ad on search terms that we buy, who is it, what are they doing? It's pretty important to do that. Plus, of course, I will, if you phone in on our 1300 number, a fair portion of the time you'll get me. I like answering the calls. I like speaking to customers. I like dealing both with support and sales calls. There's nothing better than do that. When I was in corporate world, I did the same thing, even when they were relatively large teams of people. It's about just, there's no better way than speaking to customers and hearing what's going on. And social media helps amplify that and helps you find it faster. But you have to do it. There's no alternative.
That thing you mentioned as far as keeping an eye on the numbers and stats, I mean, that's been a big part where Shoebox kind of has fit in with us, and also, as I mentioned, Xero, because before our accounting used to be almost like on a quarterly basis, and we'd be more reactive than we are proactive, whereas now, we're importing things throughout the month and we've got much greater visibility. It sounds like, I mean, you've had some experience in the corporate world as well as running your own business. Some of the lessons that you've found as far as keeping that dashboard, is that something that you saw elsewhere, or you've just kind of developed it? I mean, there are any number of things you could be monitoring. How do you determine what's important?
Oh, look, we have a big benefit in that our big brother of Shoebox in the US are several years ahead of us and significantly larger in scale. So we take a lot of lessons from what they're doing and try and use that in how we run our business. In terms of the dashboard, we actually use Xero for our own business. We support a whole bunch of other stuff, but it so happens we use Xero, so I'm aware of their dashboard. And we do the regular reconciliation. And while it is actually good to do that regularly, one of the things I found is you can overlook at it. And so you can start responding to things which probably you needed to wait a little bit and see, is it actually a trend? Is it something you need to worry about? So you're going from doing things quarterly or monthly, and suddenly you're getting information every single day. So you do need to be a little careful about it. But we identified what we thought were our most important metrics. We test them. We see what happens if we change this thing. Does it impact the metric? Has it become a good predictor of where our business is going? We know things like how we need to ramp our operations team, how we can add people in, when we need to do that. We've now got 3 years of history, so we know our seasonality as well. Those are really hard things to do in the first couple of years. You don't know that. If you were sitting and looking at it from the outside, you'd assume that June is the busy period because that's the end of the financial year. It's not. And it's not because that's not when people have to file their taxes. They file their taxes at the end of October, or for most small businesses, if they're using an accountant, at the end of May. So our busy period is sort of April and September, October. It's been really interesting. You've just got to, the data's there. You've got to learn to look at it. You've got to dig in. And the sort of academic line of correlation is not causation is very important. Just because you've found two things that appear related doesn't mean that that was the cause of your problem.
Yeah. I mean, you've provided some really good insights into the way that I suppose you approach business and the way that Shoeboxed works. Maybe in the tail end, I don't know if there are any other tips that you've got for sort of small, medium-sized business owners as they're getting started, as they're building up their own little empire. Any things that you've come across where you've thought, hey, that was important for us, and looking back now, that was a big piece?
Find a good accountant and a good lawyer and trust their opinion.
Perfect.
That's probably the biggest piece of advice. We were, when we first got set up, we were given some advice to do certain things, and we sort of said, oh no, we want to save a bit of money on that. And we said, oh look, can we wait 6 months on it? Can we wait 12 months on it? Well, you can. We suggest you don't, and we did, and we shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And you save a penny here, it ends up costing you $1 later on. It's not worth doing.
Yeah. So I mean, getting the right advice and getting organised is probably absolutely key. So I mean, if people want to get organised using Shoeboxed, they can obviously visit shoeboxed.com.au, and I know you've got a blog and lots of info on there.
Yeah.
We use it, we love it. Do you have your own personal blog or anything like that, or do you just sort of point everything through to Shoeboxed?
Everything's through to Shoeboxed, although I've started writing for a couple of the small business magazines. You'll find me, I think I'm on Startup Smart, Dynamic Business, My Business. I'm starting to put some stuff out there and see what's going on. And Skype is giving us a bit of a pain there. Hold on. I just got a message saying video is too slow.
It seems to be coming through all right at this end. So
okay, I'll repeat that then. So I've been doing guest blogging for Startup Smart, Dynamic Business, My Business, also on our own blog, which is you can find off shoebox.com.au. There's links from there. And we're tweeting through Shoeboxed Ost. And, of course, you can always pick us up on the phone. We do believe still in answering our phones, and I'll pitch the number 1300 00 1333. There's an interesting story about that phone number, actually. When we were getting set up for our business with the envelopes, our most important initial relationship was Australia Post, and they're not an organisation you think would be responsive to small businesses. We found them incredible. They assigned us an account manager. This business that had existed for a couple of weeks had no idea how much business we'd be doing. They worked really closely with us. And we had a suggestion from them, why don't you get a post office box and a phone number that have the same 4 digits? And that's where our phone number and our PO box. We have PO box 1333. And that's where it came from. And so, you never know where your advice is going to come from, and a good piece of advice.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for your advice, Simon, and appreciate the time. And we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, David. I've enjoyed it.